I came here to save you.
The fortress is taken.
It is over.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
You're my only hope.
We shall fight on the beaches.
There will be days when we lose faith.
We band of brothers.
But take heart. Look around. You're not in this fight alone.
I bid you stand! Men of the West!
Okay, here we go. I'm Caleb.
Welcome. And I'm Dan.
And this is King's Advisors. And
What are we
today
talking about
we are
today, Caleb?
today we're going to talk about Marvel. More specifically, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and its current state of affairs, and later, where it's going with everything that's scheduled and how everything's kind of been pushed back, and then whether or not the ship that for the longest time was unstoppable can be righted.
Yeah, I think just to start us off here, I think it's remarkable that a video like this even has to be made, right? I mean, This was the largest thing in the world at one point. I mean, and we're talking about the peak of Game of Thrones as well, and Marvel was still probably way more popular at that time. And to think now we're having this conversation of, is the end on the horizon? Like, honestly, do you really think they can make it to a phase 6? I don't think they can.
Well, and that's the thing, so we've just finished phase 4 with Wakanda Forever. And I know we'll talk about this in a sec, but Wakanda Forever, it should do really well. But it should be the it should be the highest grossing movie this year. And it should be the highest grossing movie since probably Spider-Man. And I'm not sure it's going to get there. I don't think it's going to be out Top Gun Maverick.
I don't think
and
so.
That's crazy. I mean, we're talking about a movie that is the sequel to, like Gary says, the greatest campaign ever in movies. And it's just it's kind of sad that we're at this point where it's like, okay, we've had these amazing characters. You had RDJ as Iron Man, probably one of the best castings since Cubby Broccoli cast Sean Connery as James Bond. I mean, peak casting. No one, even if they go and do some sort of, hey, we're going to start over and we're going to do a new Iron Man story, no one's going to care because it's not Robert Downey Jr. Anyone will forever be compared to him.
Yeah, I agree. Like, same thing though with the person who followed Sean Connery. I mean, there's nothing wrong with replacing
George Lazenby.
Yeah, right. Well, that was kind of cursed, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
And then it was Roger Moore following Lazenby, right?
Well, actually, it went from Sean Connery to George Lazenby,
and
then Sean Connery came back for Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, or is it Diamonds Are Forever?
Diamonds Are Forever. And
was
then
Moonraker his one before he left?
No, Moonraker was Roger Moore.
Why do I get so confused? Yep. Edit that out. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. In space with Jaws.
With Jaws, yeah. I can't believe I thought that was a Connery film.
It's because Connery did Thunderball that also had a satellite launch, I believe. So there's two different rocket things there.
Well, don't forget, my favorite one personally is, and this doesn't have anything to do with Marvel. We might actually have to edit it out. My personal favorite one is You Only Live Twice, which also has rockets in it.
It's a good one. My personal favorite is The Living Daylights.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
But yeah, so back to Marvel.
Yeah, well, my point being that specifically that just because you have an iconic role doesn't mean that the shoes shouldn't be filled again or that people shouldn't attempt it. And I think that would have really helped in this situations because you have these iconic characters. You have Thor, and you have Captain America, and you have Robert Downey Jr. Well, you have Robert Downey Jr. is not the superhero. You have Iron Man. And they're all played by these iconic people, but now they've stepped away from the roles. And I don't know if Thor has stepped away indefinitely. He seems like he's up for more, even though he's taking a break from retirement.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you saw that story.
Yeah, he's taking a break for his health. I believe he's trying to. Actually, I'm not really sure why he's stepping away. I don't know if it's the stuff I'm doing leads quicker to Alzheimer's if you're predisposed to it.
Yeah,
but
he said that he just needed to take time to focus on his longevity. Like the article that came out suggested that he's kind of had his patience tested with the last bit of movies he's done. And in what seems to be a slight against Taika Waititi, he said he's done with mad genius directors. So you take a guy like that who could have done this role for another 10 years. I mean, there could be Thor 10, right? As long as he's not finding himself.
We've got Hugh. I almost said Hugo Weaving. We've got Hugh Jackman in another Wolverine movie. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that 10 movies he's been as Wolverine?
I think it's getting upon that. I definitely know he's got the most appearances as the same character more than anybody.
You've got 3 X-Men, 2 Wolverine movies. You've got 3.
Well, yeah, 3.
It'll be 10 because you've got 3 of the other universe. Then you've got Logan, and now you'll have Deadpool 3. Yeah, so that'll be 10 movies. He'll be Wolverine. So yeah, those Australians, man. They're incredible.
I know. Yeah. But I think that would really help in this, give it some life right now. I know it would be controversial. Yeah. People wouldn't want to see, Captain America played by a different guy, but we still want him to be Steve Rogers. He doesn't need to be Chris Evans, right? I think that's the point I'm making is there's all these stories that they've kind of just skipped by that they could could have made movies out of.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of lazy writing going on. Because as we've seen in what is the worst thing ever placed on television, She-Hulk. And the fact that, we've got, so I've watched 6 episodes of She-Hulk. I'm not sure I'm going to finish it. I wanted to do an actual review, kind of like the other guys do, but I don't know if I'm going to make myself watch it. I can't make myself watch Miss Marvel. I've never been a big fan of that character. I feel like they really squandered what could have been a very good character just to kind of be like, hey, we have a female character. She's also Muslim. It's like, okay, cool. Is she good? Is she a good character? Because people have proven time and time again, they might complain at the beginning. There might be people out there, and we saw that, House of the Dragon is a great example of that. We saw people complaining about the race swapping of the Corlises. They don't care anymore because he did an amazing job or is doing an amazing job. So they don't care. They want a sea snake show with him as Corliss. So it's the reason people complain is because they see studios do this, and then it's like, okay, well, that's a change. So you're willing to change that. Are you going to change anything else? And then you get things like The Witcher, where apparently they've changed half the story.
Well, I mean, that's true to be told. What they've basically done is in The Witcher, they've given characters storylines to other characters to make them feel more empowered, right? So it's like
which is a big problem. It's what they did in Rings of Power.
That's exactly right. That's exactly it's cut from the same cloth. They all went to what appears to be the same creative school, which is teaching everybody to be the exact same.
And the problem is, you've got these stories that have stood the test of time. I mean, Lord of the Rings is the second most popular book ever sold in the 20th century behind the Bible. And it's still extremely popular today. Comic books prior to, let's say, the last decade have been one of the number one selling forms of entertainment of the last 60 years, I believe. Manga having just overtaken that in the last 3 years, I think. And it's just kind of like, look, these things were popular for a reason. It wasn't popular because it was a man. It was popular because it was a well-written character. And that's just not what you have today. You've got these, you saw all these things come out in the last week since Wakanda Forever's been out. That's just says it's like every single Avenger has been replaced by a female character. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with having Ironheart. The problem is Riri Williams has failed as a character every single time they've tried to create her.
It seemed like that, doesn't it? I mean,
and Florence Pugh is not likable as the new Black Widow.
Well, I'm surprised that. Well, first of all, let me comment on the replacement of everything. I think it's funny that they told you they were going to do this, and some people believed them, and some people said that was a conspiracy theory. And then they did it, and now the proof is there. Like now we have pictures for all of them and movies and stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, they said they were going to do this. They said they were going to have more female superheroes, and there's inherently nothing really wrong with that. I mean, like, I love Wonder Woman. I think that Black Widow is a really cool character. Gamora is probably one of my favorite people in the MCU, along with the actress. I love Zoe Saldana. She's been great in everything she's ever done.
Yep.
And even though she's, arguably played the same character in a lot of the same things, I think she's a phenomenal actress. I enjoy watching her work, as well as Karen Gilliam. I like Nebula. I like her arc, her whole story of she can't win, and every time she loses, like those are good stories. Like why?
Yeah.
Nobody has a problem with them at all, and to suggest so would be unfaithful. And then, I think it's
evil towards the character themselves as well.
Yeah,
to say that they can't hold the screen.
I was going to say is similarly insulting to the character. Like these, you can't be a good superhero unless you take that power of a man.
Yeah.
Like you're not valid because you haven't, like I would honestly wonder if people would think that Gamora was a better superhero or if She-Hulk was a better superhero and who would be better for feminists.
I would be willing to put money on the fact that the majority of people select Gamora.
I would bet you that the majority of fans, like you and I, would select Gamora. But I don't. I would love to see a feminist's head explode.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see their head explode at the thought of.
Well, which Green Lady do I pick?
A smaller, less physically threatening, yet more deadly, infinitely more deadly than She-Hulk. I would say Gamora is like one of the best assassins in the universe.
Yeah.
Right?
Galaxy.
More deadly, but her arc centers around her relationship with her father and her love for another man. And I don't think feminists could take a step back and say Gamora is the better character because at its heart, Gamora's soul is in conflict with itself. She's a loving, caring person who's been turned into a monster by a monster. It's almost like what abuse has done. She actually breaks the cycle of abuse, if anything, which I think is an infinitely more powerful storyline than somebody going fucking clothes shopping or twerking in an office. Like I don't understand. I know I've just made up this argument and I'm kind of creating a straw man of people who would argue in favor of She-Hulk, but I can see it happening. I can see somebody making the argument that She-Hulk is more feminist than Gamora is because of the reasons I listed that are against Gamora, because two men are the resulting part of two of three of her arcs. I'm not counting her third arc with her sister, which is gorgeous, which is in itself feminine, like very feminine, right? I don't like to use the word feminist. I think it's feminine because getting along with your siblings, two sisters getting along, I couldn't imagine a more touching story on a feminine level that must really speak to women, right? I would assume.
I think everything you've just said is spot on, and I'd love to just listen to more of that. That
I
was
mean,
incredible. I loved it.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. I'm just saying, like, we've already had these characters. And it's like, and I'm gonna use Tolkien as a reference here, just because it kind of maybe highlights the point even better. The Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring was published in 1954, if I'm not mistaken, with The Hobbit being published a few years earlier. And if I'm even wrong, my point still stands: is that the character of Eowyn was created nearly 100 years ago. And people try to act like there's a feminine lack in Lord of the Rings, and it couldn't be more farther from the truth. If anything, Tolkien was so progressive in his treatment of women that it actually confuses people today. I mean, here you have a battle-hardened shield maiden of a warrior culture who simply loves her family so much that she can't actually imagine serving them better than by their side on the battlefield. I mean,
Yep.
Think about how difficult it must be for women to send their husbands, sons, and brothers to war. Like, that is not something that's easy for women to go through, to be told to just stay at home. And that's the beauty of her arc, is she says no. She says no. She dresses up like a man and goes to war. And then she slays, literally, LOL, she slays the Witch King. And
well, even before that, one of the things that I really love before that is and we've talked about it before in our review of House of the Dragon, where you got these moments that you see these female characters kind of saying, why can't I be equal? Why can't I be equal? Me, me, me. And then you have a male character that's like, look, you're in a great place. Look at how everyone else compares to you. And kind of in the same attitude, you've got that moment at Helm's Deep where she says in the movie, I cannot remember if it's in the book, but she says, I want to fight. Let me fight. I'll fight by your side, Aragorn. Where's the renown is sitting in the caves. And Aragorn says, there may come a time for courage without renown. And you realizing at this moment that he's saying, look, we might fail, and you might be the last thing between the Uruk-hai and these people that will be counting on you. And in that moment, you just get this amazing female character that just realizes the position that she's being placed in, and that what she wants is what she's going to get, but just not in the way that she wants it. And I think it's an incredible moment in that movie, and really in just cinema in general, an excellent example of how to write a female character. And that's not to say that you can't have a female character that is just OP like some male characters are. I mean, there are people that would argue, going back to Marvel, that Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man are OP, and they're not necessarily wrong. The problem is that these characters are so well established that we already know their struggles. When Captain America is sitting there in, I believe it's Civil War, where what's her name dies and they're having the funeral. He's just spent the entire movie prior to that being a total badass, not having a single problem. Definitely OP. But then in the next movie, you see him at a very low point, and him realizing that though he has this amazing power, these amazing superhuman abilities, everything he knows and everything he grew up with is dying and leaving him behind. And I think one of the problems with Marvel today is the people in charge can't contemplate a emotional struggle versus a physical struggle. And so they write these female characters that have no struggles on either side because they think, well, women are better at dealing with their feelings, so they wouldn't have an emotional struggle. And then they're like, oh, but we can't give them a physical struggle because then we're not being fair to the women, which you see perfectly in the I think it's the second episode of She-Hulk, where she's out beating Hulk and everything. And it's like, are you kidding me? First off, the fact that there's a scene where a Jeep runs over Hulk is stupid. But beyond that, Hulk has been Hulk for what, probably 20 years at this point. And
I mean, who knows? I mean, are you even gonna? I don't even know if technically the I guess it seems like it is now. It seems like they confirmed it in this. But is the Edward Norton Hulk canon? Like, is what happened in that movie? Is that supposed to be Mark Ruffalo's story as well?
Well, so it is canon because at the end of it, you got the scene with RDJ coming in to talk to General Ross.
Oh, I know that's where the Marvel Cinematic movies, the cinematic universe started. I was there. I freaked out. Like, yeah, I was blown away. I'd never even considered that movies could be connected. I was like, oh, these are we're doing this now. You know what I mean? Like, this is cool. And I was there. I was the prime target at that age. I was like going to see Iron Man. I was going to see Hulk, Iron Man 2, Captain America. Saw them all in the theaters.
I went to Iron Man 2 by myself. No, sorry, wow. I went to Iron Man 3 by myself. I couldn't find anyone to go during the time that I wanted to go. So I was just like,
that doesn't surprise me. We maybe do a side note on this one, but I always loved that Iron Man 3 was essentially the Incredibles. Like, it was the same exact story. It was hero gets ignored by nerd, and nerd grows up to be a superhero and gives powers to everybody. Did you ever put that one together? It's
no,
there.
I didn't.
It's there. It's the same story.
It's a bit of a stretch.
A stretch? It's the same story. Yeah. It's like literally scene for scene. Like, the scene where Mr. Incredible ignores the kid?
Right.
That scene is almost exactly the same as the one where Robert Downey Jr. ignores the villain in Iron Man 3.
That's two. No, it is 3.
Iron Man 3 is where the guy gets them fire powers, right? He gets all the ability to shoot fireballs out of his hands with the Mandarin.
A lot happens in the third movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying the same. It's like the same story, though. It's like the same.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's just a joke. It's a meme I saw years later.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Mandarin storyline, which really made me angry.
Oh, yeah. Well,
because I thought we were going into some really cool stories, and then nope. Which apparently they're planning on fixing somehow. But
yeah, like he was going to be a fake Mandarin, and the real Mandarin's actually out there
copying the real Mandarin. That's what I thought we were going to get with Shang-Chi.
I love Ben Kingsley though; he was great in that.
Yes, Ben Kingsley is incredible.
He's like walking around with the can of beer. He's like, "Oh, I don't know, let me get you something around here." Like, it's just,
and falls asleep and then gets woken up.
Yeah.
So going back to Marvel a little bit. So the current state, I would say, is 100% the lowest it's ever been. And probably unfixable. They would have to do a lot to fix this. And I think they're not willing to do it. And I think I'll actually save that for later. But I'm curious where you think we're going with all of this. I know we already have some movies that they're working on. So we kind of so everyone already kind of has an idea. But post 2025, where do you think we go with this? Do you think you think we get some big movie at the end of 2026 maybe, and that just ends the MCU?
I see it one of two ways. I see it either nobly having the big movie that says, all right, this is it. Everybody come get your last Marvel ticket. We're doing this, all right? We're going to market it as the end, and we're going to tell everybody it's the end. And so, by God, we're going to end it. Or it'll go on ad infinitum, and it would honestly probably just start becoming like
the Fast and Furious movies.
I would say, well, the problem with the Fast and Furious movies is those kind of pivoted. They went from like cool street heists to like action adventure movies.
Yeah.
And I just don't see Marvel pivoting to anything. I mean, like you kind of already had your pivot to comedy with Guardians of the Galaxy. And now they're trying to recreate that over and over and over again. It's like, okay, maybe you guys should just go back to like really good adventure movies, like really good start to finish stories instead of doing the same thing over and over again and trying to tweak it slightly to no avail. And I just think that that's what we're going to keep getting. I think the cynical side of me thinks that they're never going to admit that they did anything wrong. They're never going to come out and say, let me say this. They're never going to cut their Batgirl movie. They're never, that movement's not going to come. They would sooner, I think Disney would sell Marvel than actually admit that they have been going down the wrong avenue for a while, because that time came with She-Hulk. They could have came out and said, you know what, Jessica Dow doesn't really speak for us. This was not our best work, you know, because I think she kind of would deserve that with the way she treated Marvel in that show. Like it was nothing
100%.
but disrespect. Like she hated it.
There's no way Kevin Feige is okay with the way that show ended.
And if he is, then he's lost control. And he doesn't actually run things as much as people say he does.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's this this robot. I just think it's like, really, the times have come and gone for the expectations I would expect. And I just think now we're at the luxury of dissecting these decisions. Like, I don't have to feel like I need to know what's going to happen with Marvel, because every day is just exciting. Like I don't know how I don't know how to describe it. Like the fire being burned is exciting. And I don't
what's sad.
Go ahead.
What's sad is I remember Age of Civil War. What is that? Like 2014?
Civil War was after Ultron, right?
Oh, no, I'm thinking Winter Soldier. Okay. So 2016, I would say, is like the top. Everything was going great. So I remember sitting in my apartment and after seeing Civil War on the phone with a friend of mine, talking about the movie and being like, okay, next year we've got this coming out. Okay, I'm hearing that they're doing a movie about this. We're gonna get this, and getting a little bit of a hearing about Captain Marvel, being like, dude, there's actually a Captain Marvel movie that's supposed to be coming. That's, oh my God, that's gonna bring in the Kree and the Skrull conflict, and that could bring in like the Secret Invasion. Oh my! And he obviously having no idea what I was talking about. And I'm sitting there just blown away, thinking this is going to be incredible. And then we got Captain Marvel, and I was like, "Oh, dang! That wasn't what I wanted." Maybe
should have been Black Widow.
Yeah, maybe someone can teach Captain Marvel how to act, or at least how to smile. And I know that's kind of a terrible thing to say, because we hear all this stuff that's like, well, you shouldn't feel like you can just tell a woman that she's just smile to smile, but not being. I mean, she spent the entire movie not happy. There wasn't a single moment in that movie where she just was like, you know what? I'm a superhuman. I'm a hero. Yay me. And I think that.
Go ahead.
I think that was just the downfall of it all. I think we stopped caring because we knew the next movie was the end of the story that we had been caring about for 11 years, And I think they knew that in order to keep people coming, they were going to have to start playing politics. And unfortunately, I think that they've swung way too far in one direction.
Well, they have never looked back from that moment where they decided
Yeah.
that we're no longer going to be an entertainment company. And I think what highlights your point there is you did describe a good timeline there of the where it actually probably went wrong. And I can't help but feel like they would have actually set themselves up far better for phase 4 if they had actually introduced the new Black Widow in the Black Widow movie instead of Captain Marvel coming out.
Yeah.
I think that would have been. I forgive me, I can't remember her name right now. I know her last name is Pugh. I don't remember her first
Florence
name.
Pugh.
Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
I think people would have actually been a little bit more open to her at the time because we didn't get her character would have been fresh at that time. Her character would have been like, I'm been the abused younger sister that's had to fight my way harder than you. And, that would have been endearing to audiences at that time. But by the time we got Florence Pugh, Black Widow was dead and she was kind of just, kind of acting like she was better than a character we all had come to know and love as dead. So we're all like, I don't really like you acting like you're better than Black Widow. Whereas that at that time, if that had come out before Endgame, we would have kind of related to her more. Be like, Black Widow's not the coolest girl we thought she was. She left her shit, all this stuff. But instead, it soured in our mouth. We're like, well, she's dead, and
because we had just watched her. Yeah, we had just watched her sacrifice her life.
So I think what I was saying was about the likability of Pugh, and this is kind of just blends into the phase 4 issues as a whole, I think, and kind of the current state. I think the issue was that they weren't really thinking about their next characters when they should have been, right? Because it's like you introduce characters, you introduce secondary characters like Falcon and the Winter Soldier in a different movie, so that way the next phase comes up and people are excited for them. But this these people were introduced in a new phase. So unless Florence Pugh is the main character, we're really not getting like that attachment we want from her.
Exactly.
Or for her.
Yeah.
And so I think that just lends into these issues where they're actually just like they're trying to drive the cart without the horse. Like they don't really know. Yeah. They have the momentum, they have the money and the fancy cameras and the teams of coders working every night to make their graphics look pretty, but they don't have the foundations that we're all used to with Marvel.
Yeah, no, exactly, Dan. You've got these instances where Marvel had everything in front of them. They were going great. We knew all the characters, we knew the stories, we were ready for everything that was going to happen. And then at some point, I think Marvel just kind of realized, oh, we're getting ready to lose all of these actors and actresses off their giant contracts or just the fact that we're done with their stories and we don't have anyone to replace them. And I think that there's two things they should have done. They could have done either of them. One, they could have added a movie to introduce some characters. So you could have done that by putting the Black Widow movie in before Infinity War. You could have kept Captain Marvel where it was, put Black Widow in there, introduce Florence Pugh's character, and that way we have sort of a understanding or a little bit of a care for her, and then you see her again in the Hawkeye show. What I think they should have done is after Infinity War, I think they should have after Endgame, they should have ended it. That should have been the MCU. And then wait a little bit, let us chew on that, get over it, and then say, hey, remember those movies you liked? We're back. We're bringing back the Marvel movies. Get ready for all new characters, all these characters that you know and love, we're still going to have them, but we're gonna have some new stories, you know. And you could have done that. They definitely could have done that because they have Disney Plus now, and that's what we're seeing, but in a very poorly managed way. We're seeing all these new characters tried out on Disney Plus, and then it kind of feels like they're going to decide whether or not to use those characters in a movie. And it's stuff that, you know, I'm hearing second, third, and fourth hand is like saying they've pretty much decided not to use any of these second stories they've created because they haven't done well at all. I mean, the only TV show story they've used is Wanda with Multiverse of Madness, and we know how that went. But
and I think it's funny. Oh, sorry to cut you off there, Caleb.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting a point where you raise up like that we're kind of coming back to this femininity in Phase 4 of Marvel, and when you bring up Wanda, look what they did to like one of their legacy characters, right? So Wanda's been in it since Age of Ultron 2. She's had her moments. She's been a hero now. She's full circled to hero. She was a villain when we met her. Let's not all forget that she worked for Ultron and she was about to destroy the world. And then she became a hero. And then immediately, as soon as they gave her an opportunity to go out on her own, to WandaVision, right? Like, this is it. This is what we're expecting. Like we want to see a Wanda story. They make her the bad guy. They instantly take one of their strongest, most likable female heroes, and they don't know what to do with her, so they make her the bad guy. Oh, wouldn't that be crazy if she was the bad guy? No, we already know she was bad. What do you mean? She's just reverted, and now we're going to do the same arc again when she eventually becomes good again? It's like you don't even know how to use these characters you have, and then you act like the people who wrote them before were all sexist and racist, and it's like you're the ones who are boxing them into corners. You're the ones who are actually taking away their agency, which is literally what they did in WandaVision because she didn't even realize what she was doing. She literally didn't have the agency to stop being a bad guy, and they didn't even recognize that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's sad, really. But my final question for you, Dan, is first, do you think it's possible, and if so, how, to right this ship?
Yeah, I'm an optimist, and I think that all things are possible. I truly do, with the right headspace and with honesty behind you. I think you could actually accomplish something good. Do I think there's a shred of honesty or integrity left at that company? No, not at all. And I think the minute you stuck your head out and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's just scrap all that trash. Let's just apologize and let's just pick up where we were. We'll recast some more people and we'll have these great adventure movies again." That guy's going to get thrown out of the window, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's never going to even get his foot in the door. Yeah, it's exactly like that meme, right? Where it's like, how do we stop making bad stuff? And it's like, well, let's stop making bad stuff. And then everyone gets mad at him, right? Because it's like, well, we got a good thing going on here. Don't rock the boat. And I think that's really where it lies. Now, in a perfect world, if you and I got control of it tomorrow, I think I would issue that. I think I would apologize. I would just apologize for Stage 4. I'd say that was stupid. Our first venture into Stage 4 was a mistake. It should not have been Black Widow. I think that was an insult to Scarlett Johansson and the character Black Widow. I think it was an insult to Wanda. I think that was very stupid that they did that to her. And I know everyone's like, "Oh, so interesting," and it was crazy. It was all tropes. They had all those sets left over. They were like, "Oh, what if we put a '90s version, or what if we put a?" It's like, well, what is that even actually doing to the story? And then by the end of the story, you realize it literally had no bearing on it at all. It was all made up anyway. And it was like, "Oh, well, those are the videos she used to watch." And it was like, that's stupid. Cool, I guess. Like, why would you? How can you justify those actions, or how can you justify that writing, right? And I think that's really where you have to go from, and you have to eat your ego, let it die, and say, "Hey, we messed up. If he doesn't want to come back, we're gonna recast Iron Man. We're gonna have Iron Man 4. is going to be the biggest movie, and we're going to relaunch the MCU just like we launched it with Iron Man 1. And then you just take it from there. You see the reception of a recasted Iron Man. You see what it would look like to, I don't think, restart the universe. I don't think that's something that needs to happen. But you've already established through Endgame that all these other universes exist with Loki as well, which I also would probably get rid of. I would probably just scrap Loki's altogether, the TV show. All the D+, all the Disney stuff, I would get rid of. I wouldn't even think to start making TV shows again. I would just stick with one movie at a time, maybe one movie every year or two, and get people back, get people hungry for it again. And I think
they're doing it's too saturated now. And it's not even like HBO's fault. It's not even Warner's fault with DC movies. It's Marvel is releasing too many movies. And I get why. If you're making $1 billion a movie, $4 billion is a lot better than one. But if they keep doing it, they're not going to make $1 billion a movie anymore.
No, I think you nailed it. So I think there is a path toward redemption for the MCU. I don't anticipate them ever taking it. That's the thing. It's like, I'm not a cynical. I'm not like, oh, it's dead. Nothing anybody will ever do will ever work. It's like, no, I have an idea of what would work and what would, I think interest would turn around like that. I think you'd have people freaking out that a company could be so forward thinking and positive. And then you would rake it in.
Yeah. So I think it is a couple beeps away from death, but there's definitely some stuff they can do to fix it. I don't know if they can stave it off, but there's some stuff they can do to at least prolong the MCU. And one of them is they need to get Blade right. And if I were them, I would do the same thing I did with Black Panther. I would spend the entire 4 months prior doing exactly what they did. Whether it's right or not, do that. Get excitement back in. And then I would postpone probably about 70% of what they've got going. And I would say, okay, we are going to release Blade. We are going to release, I think there's an Avengers movie after this. Or no, sorry, it's Guardians. We're going to release Guardians, and we are going to release Blade.
I think
let's
that's
see
really what's
how
gonna
that
end on
does.
Guardians. Yeah.
Let that do it. Let it do its thing. Figure out where we're at with that, and then come back to the drawing board, because going full steam ahead with what they've got is not going to work. But yeah, so those are our thoughts on the current state of the MCU and whether or not this megalith of a ship can be righted. Yeah.
I think it was time well spent. And we thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, we appreciate your feedback. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be back in the future with more content. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and please subscribe, click that bell, and give us a follow on Twitter at KingsAdvisors_.